Hello, I'm the Bunny Man.
And I'm Crazy Susie.
And we are in the Eyes of Terror.
Are we?
Are we? How did I get in here?
I forget. What are we doing?
We're doing a Terror Talk.
So much recording, my brain goes crazy cuckoo.
So, if you don't know what a Terror Talk is, it is a free-form talk where we talk about whatever we feel like that revolves around the horror community. Or...
No, we talk about whatever the Bunny Man wants to, and sometimes that makes me not so happy.
Well, we're going to change it up next month, so everybody has a fair say in what we talk about.
Oh, you mean I get to choose?
Yeah.
Whoa.
This is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while now.
Okay.
And we finally got that hammered out, so...
You mean you finally forced me to do research?
Yes. Now, let's talk about it. So, what are we drinking tonight? I have yet to get another beer. I'm going to go grab one. What are you drinking?
The same thing I've been drinking for the past several hours. Just sweet tea. Very, very interesting. Just sweet tea.
I am now drinking a Dura Dam lager beer. It is a sorghum-based beer.
It's gluten-free.
And I'll be honest, it is not the best tasting beer.
It is basically a gluten-free Budweiser.
Yeah.
It's a Budweiser-esque.
And it comes from Barcelona, Spain. So, it was a little on the pricey side, wasn't it?
It wasn't horrible.
Okay. Yeah, it's a bit of a Budweiser. Now, if you like Budweiser or you're looking for a light lager beer, you might enjoy this. We found this at a store called Earth Fare.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I mean, it's not awful, especially if you have a gluten issue and you like Budweiser, then you'll probably love it. But I'm not very fond of Budweiser, and I do have gluten issues, so...
So what tea bags do we use? We use Tetley's, don't we?
Yes.
It's a fine brand. Tetley's iced tea.
I like Tetley's.
And me too. So.
What brought tea about?
You've been drinking tea.
Oh, yeah.
So. Just finish out that shock top. All right.
I'm just not drinking alcoholic beverages because I took my medication not long ago and I can't drink alcohol with it. So,
all right. So, our topic of tonight is internet urban legends, revolving around creepypastas, things like that. If you don't know, an urban legend is usually a localized story of something that is based on very limited facts, and then it's sort of blown up out of proportion to either said person was a murderer or something dark happened. Instances of, like, my namesake, the Bunny Man, comes from West Virginia, and there was supposedly a guy that dressed up as a bunny man and threw an axe at somebody to scare them. And then it blew up to supposedly a person escaped from an insane asylum and killed rabbits and hung them in the trees. And then he used to live in what has been, I think, locally known as the Bunny Man tunnels. And he still haunts those places. Another one is Gravity Hill where kids were hit by a bus. And of course, a lot of these don't have any basis. There's no written history of this actually happening. So, Gravity Hill, the rumor is, the folklore is that this bus back in like the 50s, it has to be removed, away from the current time. So, either it be the 30s, 40s, or 50s usually are the most popular time period. These kids were in a bus driving it, and then the bus stalled out on the train tracks. The train hit them. Everybody died. And if you stop on this hill and you put your car into neutral on top of this hill by the train tracks, your car will be pushed over the train tracks into safety. And, people have put powder on their car and swear that there's small hands on it and stuff like that. To go find out that it actually does happen, but it's not. It's more that it's just sort of like a magic spot, quote unquote. It's just
like a magnetic pull or something.
It's not a magnet. No, it's just the area tricks the eye to think that you're going steeper than it really is, and it's actually really interesting. I watched something on it. It's more of it. You're going downhill, but you think you're steeper than you are. So there's that, and then the one in our local town is that the mausoleum. That a girl was killed by a train, and blood was splattered on the mausoleum, and as much as they scrub it, the blood remains on the mausoleum, no matter how much they scrub.
Which is weird because it's nowhere near a train.
And there's the thing, it's like it's so far removed from there is no.
The train is like 3 blocks from it or something. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot imagine the blood. What it would look like for a blood splatter to be that far away. But that's the myth, because the mausoleum has this algae or something that grows on it that looks like blood.
Yeah, it makes no sense logically.
And every time we go by it, our daughter has to mention that.
Yeah, I'm just like, you don't have to listen to the nonsense that other people say. Use common sense. But, common sense is a t-shirt that 90% of people just don't have in their closet. They just don't wear it.
So that brings us up to. So I would say urban legends probably died in the 90s, mid 90s, 2000s, early 2000s, I think.
Well, I wouldn't say that, because there's people that still believe in Bigfoot and all that, so they're not dead.
I'm not saying they're dead, but they have stopped evolving, I think.
They're a lot less popular.
Well, I think some of it has to do with a lot of these urban legends.
Or maybe they've just transitioned to modern times. They're more online now.
But what I'm trying to say is that I think a lot of it was that when we were kids and stuff, we would go to summer camps and we would hang out with friends, and that's how these stories would go. Is either you go to a summer camp and it's told around a campfire by some sort of adult, or if you're in Scouts or Girl Scouts, it's told by a cell leader or somebody else, or your friend heard it and then therefore they tell you, and then it's a game of telephone where it evolves into something else. Bloody Mary is a great example of that. If you say Bloody Mary 3 times in front of a mirror, then she's going to come out. And then it turned into, if you say it 3 times in front of a mirror, she's going to come out and scratch you. And then it goes out to, if you say it 3 times, she will cut you. And then she'll murder you. Because I knew somebody, and it always goes, when she murdered you, because I know because that happened to a friend of mine, who lives, 50 miles away. But don't bother to look it up. and then it evolves into, if you're pregnant, it'll cut the baby out and take it because, it evolves into this. Now she has a backstory. Mm-hmm. So, now we've gone into what is known as creepypastas, are now what I consider internet urban legends. One of the more popular one that blew up over the past couple of years is Slender Man. So I guess that's where we're going to start. So the Slender Man, I didn't know if you know this or not, but they're coming up with a movie, a Slender Man movie. So
I did hear about that.
I'm sort of interested to see where it goes because I think, outside of what sci-fi's done with creepypastas, it would be the first sort of like national release of something like that. And the issue that I've heard that they're having with the creepypasta type stuff is they don't know who to basically buy the rights to. Because the issue with the creepypastas is it starts with usually like one person who writes a story or draws a picture. Like with the Slender Man, it comes from an image, and then it evolves. So it's like, who do we buy the credits for so we don't get legally bit in the butt later on? But the thing is like so many people put into it that it's hard to trace it back to one creator when it's so many, and everybody goes underneath a pseudonym on the internet for the most part. So it's like, how do we trace back a story, and they may not be on that website anymore? So that's sort of like the issues that I've heard, happened. So Slender Man started on the Something Awful boards with a Photoshop contest. I don't know if you know what Something Awful is. It's a forum, but it's a pay forum. You have to pay to be on it. So I never really got onto it. It used to be free at one point, but because of the expenditure to keep up the site, it's sort of like 4chan, minus like Poll. It's mostly for like creepy type stuff or stuff. Like I said, I never really got into that. So, and there's Something Awful. But it was a picture of a tall guy with no face, and like with tentacles, like these shadow tentacles, and being unnoticed by children. So, and then there was another image, and then that's how that started, and then it grew up into that his name was the Slender Man, and he liked to abduct children. And I don't think I've ever heard what he does with said children, but children trust him. So I don't know if he takes like their energy force to keep alive, as like he uses the children. I like to think he uses the children as a food source. And then it's just grown up more, and other creepypastas we're going to talk about have entered it into that umbrella of the Slender Man and become proxies of his. And then it has come into real life now where two girls try to kill another girl so they can join, it was basically a human sacrifice concept. So they sacrificed this girl to Slender Man, that they would join him in his mansion and become his proxies. And one girl was sent away for 4 years to a psych ward, and I forgot what happened to the other. Both of them are imprisoned. The one, I think, who masterminded the entire thing is sent to 40 years in a psych ward. And then I think the girl survived, but don't quote me on that. So that's, so it's grown up from internet, from an image to stories, hundreds of different little stories, video games. There's the Slender Man video games for a long time. The flash-based ones where you collected the notes and creepy setting and stuff like that. And then now a movie and a murder. So
And there's supposedly been, quote, now tell me if I'm wrong, multiple supposed sightings.
Yeah, of the Slender Man across both the United States and I think Europe. So where you can readily get onto the internet. So I think that's interesting too. It's sort of like the.
I find that part completely and utterly fascinating, to where an imaginary creature has been sighted. You know, the mind is such a powerful thing, to where someone has created this entity and other people can make this entity into a physical thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just by the idea of it being planted out there. This person hasn't preached to that person, hasn't tried to threaten these people, nothing. Just by putting it out there on the interwebs, the idea of this said creature or entity, and just by invoking the fear that this entity could be out there, has sparked these sightings.
Well, you know, it's the Bigfoot phenomenon, the UFO concepts, stuff like that. You know, I'm not trying to downplay any of this, but it's like people swear they see Bigfoot all across the world. You know, there's been so many. It's the same with like the Loch Ness creature up in Canada. There's Champy, which is a very creature that resembles Loch Ness. You know, there are it's called cryptozoology. You know, and there are sightings of like the chupacabra, stuff like this. And basically, the Slender Man has become a cryptoid, in my opinion. But I mean, it's like, did we imagine this creature into being, or is it, in a way, the coat in the dark concept, where it's you don't recognize it, it's a shadow on your wall, but it doesn't take the form of a coat anymore. It's a creature, you know. So I think that's interesting. But I mean,
I'm listening.
No, I really else don't know where I'm going with this. I just think it's interesting, like you said, that people have cited these creatures within.
That is very fascinating. You know, it's an imaginary creature. It's not real. It's completely imaginary. It's fictional. And just because someone has planted the idea of this being, it's a story. Someone has planted the idea of this being. And people all around the world have supposedly seen this being. All they have to do is plant the idea of it.
Well, but again, it's like this.
I mean, but I guess that's no really different than planting the idea of the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus or whatever.
Or even going more primal to our ancestors, fairies. You know, for the longest time, even in England, there's this road being built in England when I was over there, and there was this fairy mound, and these are all over England, and it's just this mound of dirt. It's pretty much, it's like whatever is a mound of dirt, and the crew, this road was planned to go right through this fairy mound, and fairies in England, in England and Scotland, and Ireland are not Tinkerbell. They're malicious. They're mischievous. They can be very vengeful. There's stories, you know, that people have who've gone into the fairy kingdom, and they feel like 5 minutes have passed and it's been 70 years, or people never returned. And they go, the fairies, there are stories.
They're very vindictive and vengeful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's also, even our customs of childbirth. Some of the customs come back from appeasing fairies. Even Halloween has its pace and appeasing fairies with giving, setting out sweets and milk and dressing up. Mm-hmm. It all stems from this belief in, at this time of year, the dead and the fairies come and roam.
Right.
And in order for you not to be taken away into these shadowy areas, these realms, you either dress up like them, mm-hmm. so they just think you're one of them.
Right, so you blend in.
And then some of our customs, our customs in the United States have changed with the customs, with the folklore here, because we definitely have different folklore that stem from the Native Americans and the different cultures that make up the United States. So our culture, so it all blends in. But going back to what I was saying, this crew was planning on, everyone on this crew stopped and refused to go around to bulldoze and go through this fairy mound. And I guess
because of all the superstitions that surrounded these mounds.
Yeah, and you got to think.
So whether it was actually a fairy mound or not, they weren't willing to take any risks.
And you got to think, the United Kingdom, most of the Western world has become very atheistic. You don't believe in anything. You don't believe in God. You don't believe in superstition. And, even the crew is we don't believe in God. They were pretty much atheistic. Mm-hmm. This entire crew, or, they didn't really think of that. They didn't believe in the folklore, but they were still faithful. They're like, we're not going to touch this mound just in case if it exists.
Right.
So,
just to be on the safe side.
Yeah. So what they did was build a road around the mound and just left it. So it's sort of a weird looking road now. But the thing is they were not willing to, they had enough, it's ingrained in their society that you don't screw with these things because bad things could happen. Mm-hmm. And now instead of that, we are ingraining a different type of monster into our psyche. I mean, to be honest, this is an SCP, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. I listen to this SCP and it sort of resigns with me all the time when I go lay down. And the SCP, what it does is that if you leave your foot out at night from underneath your blanket when you first lay down, a hand will come up and start slicing off your foot till it slices you all the way up. And I'm like, I don't believe there's anything underneath my bed except for crap, but I'm not going to play around with it. So you're sort of like...
The only thing underneath our bed is Luna's toys that she hides underneath there.
But, I mean, it's sort of like one of those fleeting moments in your head is like, well, as if this is real type thing. I dare you think to hide underneath our bed. Luna would freak out. But,
it wouldn't be under there very long.
But, so, I mean, like you said, so that's the Slender Man. So
the Slender Man, does he have tentacles that come out of his back?
Yes.
I never really understood the illustrations where the tentacles were actually located.
I'm thinking along the spinal cord, like they converge around the spinal cord.
So they're very similar to the character off of Batman.
Or Doc Ock off Spider-Man.
Maybe it was Spider-Man I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
The Doctor off Spider-Man.
Yeah, Doc Ock off Spider-Man.
Where he made the adaptation that connected to his spinal cord, where it had the extra arms.
I mean, that's just from like where I would locate them at. If within that region, that would make the most sense. Now, I don't know.
Because I know he looks like a very clean-cut, dressed man in a pinstripe suit.
It looks
without a face. Mm-hmm. There's no face.
No.
And a lot of illustrations, you don't even see the tentacles.
No.
Unless he's trying to abduct.
Yeah, the tentacles are in prey mode. Mm-hmm. They're in hunt mode. They're not in. They're at the point where the hunt is in, the prey is in the snare. It's time to feast. Now I've seen illustrations where, although the face is blank, it does. There's I guess it would be a jawless mouth would form, and it would almost like a snake and sort of envelop the child.
Well, I've seen illustrations where it's not so much of a blank face, but almost like instead of having like the snake kind of eggshell type face, blank face, where it looks like muscular type fibers that have ripped, kind of torn open.
Well, and
you see like a partial mouth protruding through. So it's kind of a hidden type mouth situation.
The great thing about
so it's a partial.
The great thing about a lot of these is that they're constantly evolving, and a lot of them are getting more and more realistic. Because also people are portraying them as cosplay characters.
So maybe there's an idea that he may have a face that partially appears during these abductions.
Yeah, I mean, there would be, in my opinion, there would be a way. I like the idea that it remains blank, but the mouth will appear. Either it be through the muscular way or whatever, like you're saying, like there's a hidden mouth and then, because, I mean, it's a humanoid creature, so therefore, I think it would interact like a humanoid creature. I mean, he really doesn't have, from what I understand...
Well, not human, but humanistic.
I said humanoid. So that would be the classification of, because it's a human creature, it's a...
Humanesque?
Humanesque, it would be a humanoid creature. So, but I don't think he, except for said tentacles, which was a later... Well, no, I mean, it was the original. It was part of the original photo. But...
See, now you got me curious.
But, I mean, it's evolved with, like, DeviantArt and stuff like that. You know, different artists had their own...
Just like every story, say... It was very much, when we were kids... So our teachers could... let us know how things evolve. You know, we were set in like a circle, and our teacher would tell the first person something, and we had to say it to the next person, and then the next, and the next.
Yeah, the game of telephone.
And it would go around the room, and then when it came back to her, she would say what was said. And then it was asked to the first person what was said to them, and we would see how the story had evolved throughout the room. It was always different by the time it got back to her.
And so, but through artistic interpretation, Slenderman also has evolved into, but I don't think he's ever been to me, a supernatural entity except for said tentacles.
Some of the illustrations I see, it looks like his face is almost like wrapped.
Yeah, pulled cloth. Yeah. And then I've seen them where it's orbital, like there's forms in the face. And I think that's more to make it humanistic. Because honestly, if you have a blank face, it's hard to imagine.
Right. It's almost like they try to give his face some type of form. To kind of show he does have a nose or eyes or whatever where they would be, but they're not there.
Well,
just to give him some shape.
I had a friend in high school, and she asked me a really good, important question at one time. It's like, what if you had to take away one feature that would not make somebody human? what would it be? A nose or eyes? What would look so obscure, so weird, if these did not exist? A nose or eyes?
Which do you think it would be?
To me, it's eyes, but I can see where the nose would come into. We're so used to having a set of characteristics on a human face. We're used to seeing orbitals where the eyes are supposed to be. We're used to seeing a mouth, and we're used to seeing a nose. You take one of those away, it doesn't...
If you take any of those away, it would be quite strange.
Yeah.
Like, there is a baby that was born without a nose. If I could type. And I'll show you a picture of him.
Yeah, it looks alien.
It's his face. He's an adorable child. I think all babies are adorable.
They all look like the little Winston Churchills, in my opinion.
His face looks very disproportionate because he doesn't have a nose.
Yeah. And I think that's why people are...
And it almost reminds me of children that have Down syndrome, because children with Down syndrome, their eyes are very disproportionate to the rest of their facial features because...
And they have that heavy eyelid. They have heavy eyelids.
Yes, they have very distinctive facial features. Individuals that are born with Down syndrome do. And he has very similar facial characteristics to those individuals simply because he doesn't have that facial balance because he doesn't have a nose.
But I think that Slender Man...
Even though he doesn't have that particular genetic abnormality.
I think with Slender Man, what makes him creepy is that he lacks any facial features.
Right.
And that's why a lot of people are putting facial features on him, because it's almost too creepy not to have facial features on a humanoid creature. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, that makes sense. You know, our facial features are how we can read each other's response to stimuli.
Yeah. These, what is it, like 95% of communication is nonverbal?
Yeah. Yeah.
So... And, you know, to have something that is nonverbal, it's creepy. All right, let's move on to our next one. Eyeless Jack.
Eyeless Jack. I found this story, this creepypasta, to be one of the most interesting ones. The idea that this guy had this strange issue of... a visual problem. He starts almost having visual hallucinations. Things turn black. His vision gets very muddy. And so he quits going to school. He quits interacting with his family because he doesn't want to have these visions of them being all black and dark and muddy, and he basically just barricades himself in his room and quits interacting and socializing with everybody. And some of his friends from school come to visit him, and one of them just jokingly says, "Yeah, I heard that you can eat kidneys and it makes your eyesight better." And then he rushes out and leaves and goes to the local butcher goes to the local grocer to get, it ends up being a butcher, but to get kidneys. And as he leaves, his friend goes, "Oh, actually, I think I misspoke. I think it was carrots." Come to find out, the kidneys work. They improve his vision. They make it go back to normal, and it works for a while. Well, there ends up being some kind of disease that affects the local livestock to where it affects the kidneys. So butchers end up throwing out their kidneys. They don't keep them. And he ends up not being able to have access to kidneys. So he goes quite mad because his eyesight is affected to the point to where everything is black and goopy and gross looking, and it makes him go quite mad to the point to where he ends up scratching his own corneas out. And
I thought he took all of his eye out, just the cornea.
well, the story specifically says that he uses his nails to scratch out his own cornea, is what it says.
Okay.
That was my understanding anyway. And he ends up going to his mother and ripping out her organs and sampling 20 of them. 20 was the number it used. Taking a bite of 20 of her organs until he finds her kidney, and being upset that he had eaten all of her kidney and there was none left because he wanted more.
I heard they're really good with onions and some fava beans.
No, that's liver and onions, not kidney. Liver. My grandmother loved liver and onions when I was a kid. And we would go to this Greek restaurant, and every...
But I heard it also goes with a nice Chianti. That's the joke!
It's fava beans and a good Chianti. Yeah. My grandmother would kill me. We would go to this Greek restaurant when I was a kid, and about once every couple months she would order liver and onions, and I used to think that was the grossest thing. And I've never been into liver. I would eat chicken livers maybe twice a year.
Oh, I love chicken livers.
And
I used to.
my mom used to make the best chicken livers, and I would eat hers, and that was about it. My best friend, her mother makes really good chicken livers, and I would eat hers sometimes too.
You make some pretty good chicken livers.
When we ate meat, I did make really good chicken livers too, but I basically just did it the way I did my fried chicken. I would season it up really good.
I was more of the organs type person compared to you.
Well, it depends on how you fix them. If you know how to soak them good, and if you soaked them overnight the day before, it would pull a lot of the bitterness out. And
well, I've noticed a lot of the themes in like Eyeless Jack and Jeff the Killer, which is going to be something we talk about next, is that there's a lot of teen angst, and so there's a lot of hatred towards parental units.
Yeah,
it's just this theme, but I understand it because we were all teenagers at one point. I don't think it's something to be afraid of. It's just saying, oh, these stories. No, it's just these are outlets for these kids that wrote it, because these are kids who literally wrote these.
Yeah, I mean, they are definitely using their writing as a medium to express things that they're going through in their daily life. And I would much rather them use their writing as a positive way of expressing their feeling and emotions than going out and hurting somebody.
Yeah.
Or cutting themselves, or, having an eating disorder or something like that. Writing would definitely be a better, more positive way of expressing themselves than doing something negatively.
And they are adding to the horror mythos.
Right. I mean...
So...
Yes, I thought Eyeless Jack was definitely one of the better creepypastas.
And his biggest feature is like a blue mask with big old black
dark eyes that are kind of bloody rimmed.
Yeah.
And, and he wears a really dark black hoodie and really kind of...
That's another trend I've noticed. It's hoodies and...
really slouchy kind of dark clothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he wears a mask.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very kind of gothical, dark, menacing kind of creature. But yeah, I really did enjoy the Eyeless Jack. And it's very reminiscent, like you said, of the kind of teenage kind of outlook on life, I guess. I can relate to it, like when we were teenagers and you would think, well, things are going to get better, and right as you think things are going to get better, then they turn.
And then it's like the parent is the authority figure, and you're like, I'm so tired of my parents telling me what to do day in and day out. Mm-hmm. And, so you take out that authority figure, so it's, and then even the concept of kidneys versus carrots is that the common misconception, the misconceptions of, being told different things than, oh yeah, it might have been this, and then you already do something and you're like, crap. Based on this misconception. So, and those are a lot of the little themes I've seen within writing.
Well, and it definitely goes to show you that lessons could be learned.
Yeah.
It was very interesting, though.
All right, let's move on to Jeff the Killer. This is another teenager that... Well, a lot of these are teenagers. Jeff the Killer and Eyeless Jack wrote these.
So Jeff the Killer was about two brothers. One ends up getting into a fight, and the other brother ends up taking the fall for it. That's really all I remember about it.
Okay, and...
So, okay. One brother ends up getting in a fight. The other brother ends up taking the fall for it. The brother that got in the fight ends up getting badly burned. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the weird part was, he gets really badly burned. The brother that got in trouble and took the fall for him, they find out that he didn't really do... He wasn't really the one that got in the fight with the other boys, so they let him go. He was in juvenile detention or whatever, and they let him go because the family had went to a neighbor's kids' party, and some of the neighborhood kids that were also invited end up getting in a fight with the son that was there that got burned. And after the party, when the whole family's reunited, the son that got burned, once all of his bandages get removed and everything, his family is basically scarred from having to see his face because it's so horrific. But he is like oddly in awe of the damage that was done to him due to these burns. Like, he is grotesquely enamored with the burns. Mm-hmm. He is just like, oh, look how great I look. I love my new look. It's awesome. To the point to where he didn't want to quit looking at his face, so he cut off his eyelids. Like, this whole incident, like, totally made him snap and go down this dark tunnel.
But he also didn't, I think it was like something he didn't like sleeping or something.
Yeah.
Like, he had a phobia or fear of sleeping. And I've been noticing that within our own daughter, this sort of like phobia of sleeping. I don't know, like, I've noticed, like, she talks to a lot of people online, and even people online I've noticed. It's like, when do you people sleep?
Mm-hmm. Well, she has a hard time falling asleep.
But I'm saying I've been noticing a trend on the internet culture,
mm-hmm.
Of kids staying up almost to the wee hours in the morning, and then going and doing schoolwork and stuff, mm-hmm. and like, but it's like, when do you sleep? type thing. It's like...
Well, I think every generation, as we go on and on and on, even from our generation till now, there's progressively just more and more stress put on generation to generation to perform.
Well, I think there's that, and I think, like with the internet, I'm not saying the internet's a bad thing, I think it's a great thing. It's just there's so much of it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so he's a name, and I think Jeff the Killer is a great example of this concept of perfection. Mm-hmm. In that, what makes him snap, but makes him free, you can say in a way,
right,
is the destruction of his face. He becomes an outcast. Mm-hmm. A social outcast.
He couldn't smile due to the scars on his face, so he gets a knife and he cuts his mouth into a permanent smile. His mother is beside herself by what her son has done to his face. Cutting his eyelids off, cutting this permanent smile on his face. Does he harm his parents?
He kills them.
He kills his...
I don't know if it is parents or parent.
His mother?
Yeah, I think both of them... a big... And I'm not...
Because I couldn't remember...
I'm not trying to point any fingers.
What the end was about.
I'm not trying to point any fingers, but I've noticed a lot of the creepypastas revolve around single parents. I've noticed that.
Well,
it was just one of those things.
Statistically, most homes are single parent homes.
Yeah,
over half. So,
and I just noticed a lot of these are single parent homes.
Well, that makes sense because statistically, that's a thing.
But yeah, he cuts his eyes. He cuts his eyelids off. He slashes his mouth open, and he kills his mom. And his tagline is "Go to sleep." And then he goes out and kills people. And again, he's in a dark hoodie. He has greasy hair. He's out in a dark hood. He's in a black hoodie with like black jeans. And
No, he's in a white hoodie.
Okay, white hoodie.
White hoodie, black slacks.
Yeah, and he has
because that's what he wore to the party.
Yeah. So, again, I think that's very interesting. It's just... I think this one deals with, again, the concept of you're already feeling outcasted anyway. And then, our society is relatively fragile on deeming outcasts, and always has been with physical beauty.
Right, and then he was traumatized and picked on by these boys in the neighborhood, and they scarred him by burning him. So he took that and used it as fuel to transform himself, and then he used that power to go out and just hurt other people. Yeah,
and I think this is really great stress relief, and I wish more students would actually do more people would write, because I think it's a great stress relief. And even if it's horror is, people look down upon horror,
as being a negative thing, but writing, I've always felt that the language in general, or reading and writing is the basis, for one, it's the basis of all learning. You have to know how to read and write to do math, English, everything. So, and writing can be very therapeutic. If you have issues, emotional issues, or depression, or any type of problem, if you write it down, you get it off your chest, you get it out of your mind, and even if it's just for you to view or not, it doesn't matter.
Well,
it doesn't matter if you plan on publishing it. It doesn't matter if you plan on anybody else reading it.
Well, and that's the other great thing about the internet, is that there are no gatekeepers. There are no people telling you can't. This story is crap.
Right.
I mean, there will be people on the internet that say this story is crap, but I'm just saying.
Right. Well, it doesn't matter if you plan on sharing it with anybody or not. It is a therapeutic tool. Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, we write our own creepypastas.
But I think the great thing about, and I've noticed this in our current society with teenagers, that they have very little places to express themselves. Mm-hmm. Very little ways to express themselves. We're killing off art in the schools. We're killing off creative writing in the schools. We're killing off band.
Right. The popular things and the things that are funded in schools are all athletic. They're not creative, and most cities and counties don't have after school places where kids can go and have positive experiences anymore because those things aren't funded. So kids are out doing drugs and getting in trouble. There aren't a lot of positive things for teenagers to do anymore. So that's why they're out doing drugs and fighting and stealing and just getting into a lot of negative.
Yeah. But I mean, the stories are great for them to do, to express themselves because, I don't feel like they can go to an adult. And right now we have this huge push for us, you can't do art because that's a bad thing.
Unfortunately, even if you do your due diligence as a parent, we've personally found that, even if you're a very open parent, even if you express to your child, you can come to me if you need somebody to talk to. Most kids don't feel like they can go to their parent and talk to them. We're both very open to our child. We both tell her if you need to come to us and talk, you can. We're very open-minded. We're very honest. We're very straightforward with our daughter. I'm a very blunt person. I tell her, I'm very open-minded, and I tell her I've always been very upfront with her and told her, when I was your age, I made mistakes. I'm going to understand if you make mistakes. And I also tell her, most likely, I'm probably going to know when you do things right after you do them, if not soon after. So you might as well just go ahead and be upfront and honest and tell me, because it's better for me to hear it from you than somebody else. Then I'm going to be upset.
All right, let's move on.
So, but yeah, I think writing, and I really do enjoy reading these creepypastas that I know that come from young adults. I mean, I find that very encouraging, especially being a writer myself and, being in the literature field. I find that awesome. I think that's awesome. So our next one is Drowns. I said
Ben Downs.
Ben Drowns.
Ben Downs is a different set of stories.
Ben Drowns. I'm not extremely into video games, and this is more of a video game based one.
It is one.
But I do find the concept of this creepypasta very interesting. It was a very long one, so I've had a little bit of trouble staying focused on it.
It's based on the N64 game, Mask Major. Mm-hmm. And now, this makes me feel old. Because I grew up playing the N64. I got it for Christmas one year, and I was super, super excited about having the N64. So, my brother was more of the Zelda player than I was. But he was running on those games, and I was like, played it, loved it. And I was like, oh, it just made me feel old. That's all I had to, it's just...
I just had to watch the videos that had the illustrations attached to keep me engaged with the story, because I have a bit of an attention issue, and it was quite long. So, but it was an interesting story. It's about a young guy that is in search for the Zelda video game.
Yeah, he's trying to find he gets a system from a friend, but it only has one game on it. Mm-hmm. So he goes out and tries to find more games. And the issue is, especially with
older games.
But it's supposed to be set in current times.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a relic of a game.
Yeah.
You know,
So
obviously it was made back in the day when we were youngsters.
So, the issue is that retro gaming has blown up, and even the N64 is considered now a retro game. And the issue is
We're retro.
Yeah, we're retro now. So the issue there is that for, let's say, a cartridge, an N64 cartridge, could cost you up to $50 to $100 just to have. No, not all of them, but the popular ones, like the Mask of Majoran, is a very popular Zelda game. And I'm not saying he was looking for that one. He got several other ones.
Right.
And he found this one. But I'm just saying, it is harder to find those than... So he's going around to...
So he was going yard sale shopping, and he happens upon this elderly man having a yard sale, and he finds the game. It ends up being not a manufacturer type copy.
It was like a bootleg.
Almost like a bootleg type copy of it. So he takes it home.
But this guy he wasn't at a yard sale, he was an art dealer. Or he was selling his art, and then the guy was...
But he was having a yard sale at his home.
Yes, and like he had his artwork out, nobody was stopping by. And then he's like, "Oh, you remind me." Like he asked if he had video games. He's like, "I don't know if I've ever heard of a video game." So he's being a little bit coy, but he's like, "I do have. Let me go get something for you or something like that." And then he said they look like the Warshock, the blots, the psychological blots. And he said he was drawn to this one that looked like Majoran's Mask. And then he brought out this game, the Majoran Mask game that was a bootleg.
Yeah, it just had Majoran's Mask written on it.
Yeah.
So he takes it home, and it still had a save on it. That said what?
Ben.
So he didn't play the save that was on it. He created a new one that he labeled it Link, right?
I forgot exactly what he labeled it, like something innocent.
He labeled it Link.
Yeah.
That was traditionally what he did when he played Zelda games. He labeled his save Link. Well, he played it to a certain state, and he talked about the different things he did on the different stages and yada yada yada.
You got to day 3, and you're supposed to do this series of things on day 3.
Right. There's certain things you have to do at certain stages in the game, and he talks about how this isn't typical in this stage and how the game is doing this and that, which I didn't understand a lot of that because I didn't really get into video games and Zelda.
And there are other videos that actually I've seen where they've emulated what the story was going through.
So that kind of, my brain kind of went on sleep mode during that part of the video.
But the gist of it is that at the end of it, the game didn't act right at all. And then at the end, it was a new save link that said drowned. So it's like been drowned. And the whole point of it was he didn't know what happened with the game. And I really don't know what to take away from this. This is one of the very few... I can understand the Plebis one. Mm-hmm. Do you remember Plebis?
Vaguely.
Okay, Plebis is another video game creepypasta. And the thing was that it was back in the arcade days. And it was a black arcade box cabinet. And it was a geometrical game. And you played it, and weird things would happen in the game, like voices and stuff. Men in black suits would come and take out the ROM and check it. It was just a lot of strange little things that were going on. And supposedly one guy died of it, and one kid vanished after they completed a high score. So there was a lot of, there's the theory that Plebis was a government game. And that if you got a high score, you went to a secret government facility, mostly the Men in Black. So
Okay, so
It,
it was very detailed. So if you're into video games, you would probably like that creepypasta. I didn't get into it because, frankly, I didn't understand it. But
well, I mean, my general gist of it was,
if you're a Zelda fan, you'd probably get it, and it would probably be something you would think is awesome. I didn't get it. I'm not a Zelda fan, so. But I did find it to be very detailed, so there you go.
okay, now we get into the SCP Foundation. Now, I'm a big SCP fanatic.
So SCPs are secure, contain, and protect. That's what it stands for?
Yep.
Okay.
So there's, you remember Warehouse 13?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked Warehouse 13.
Okay, take Warehouse 13 and put either different type of items, like Warehouse 13, or humanoid people that have abilities, different abilities. Like, one instance, there's a plane that goes to hell. And there are items that could, if they would get out, would destroy the world. And then it's a very scientific way of describing things. Each one of them has a number, and then they would have a description. And they would explain what happened, like what happens when these things are activated. And each one of them has a ranking. If it's safe, it's okay in the facility as long as it doesn't go out of the facility. And it goes up to Keter or world-ending ranking. And those are the really, really bad things you don't want to deal with. And like there's the ever-living monster, where it's like a crocodile-like creature that can't be killed. There's a sculpture that if you blink will kill you. It's sort of like the Weeping Angels. And a lot of these are based off of other sort of like little things. And this foundation, the whole purpose of this foundation is to find these items, capture these items, and secure them. But they also are there to test what happens to these items. And then they have, on certain items, they have what's called D classes, which are basically inmates and stuff like that. They're sent, and they're basically the red shirts from like Star Trek. They're just there to die and see what happens when. One of my, I have two really favorite ones. One of them is the sketch that comes alive, and she knows that she's not. She's a sketch. She doesn't know that she's a sketch, but progressively she becomes self-aware. And there's another one that's a strip club, based on the strip club. And there's these weird acts that go on at this strip club. And if you give them a certain amount of money, they become increasingly weirder. Like one of them, like it's one of my favorite, like, I just like this one is D.exe. One of the dancers is called D.exe, which is a hard drive that you put money in. And then there's another one where it's like a monkey and a headless naked woman taming said monkey, where the monkey's taming the woman. These are acts within the strip club. And then there's one that performs human sacrifice. These three naked ladies perform human sacrifice within this nightclub.
That's strange.
Yeah, it's a very, really interesting. And some of them are getting into very, very, very detailed and are very long. The thing that at first, when I got into SCPs, was the hard part was how clinical it was, how clinical written it was. You know, it'd be SCP-231, and then, you know, description, or rating, description. And then, but after you listen to a lot of them, after you listen to a few and you like them, you get into them. But the thing I like about them...
So, What really is the difference between a creepypasta and an SCP?
Nothing. SCPs is just... The SCP is a creepypasta, but it's set in an SCP world. This is what you have to do to make this as an SCP. You have to do a very clinical layout of it. Okay.
So an SCP is a creepypasta. It is just a particular
Style.
item,
Yeah, it's just...
and it
lives in this world.
And it's in a particular form. It's formatted a particular way.
Yeah, it's formatted in a particular way. There's a bunch of different writers. You know, some of them are really funny, some of them are really terrifying, and some are very lackluster, and some of them are really good. But they all live in this world. This is what's called the Foundation. Gets these items and screws around and sees what they do. And so all these creepypastas live in this world. And it's just, this is how it's written out. That's the difference between just a free-form creepypasta and an SCP.
Okay.
And the thing, what creeps me out about SCPs is that I can see that existing as a group in our world. Because we don't know what our government does, or any government does. You know, we have the FBI and the CIA, and we have a lot of other dark agencies. You know, you hear stories of different dark agencies. You know, why wouldn't there be something, if magical items did exist, that would gather them?
Yeah.
You know, very similar to the Warehouse 13 concept. Okay, so we get into more real life stuff. Do you want to say, quote unquote?
Well, supernaturalistic.
So which one do you want to do first?
It doesn't matter. Let's just keep going down the list.
So, do you want to talk about Zozo?
I really don't want to talk about any of it because I don't believe in any of it, but this is your show.
So, do you want to talk about Zozo? Have you heard the good word of Zozo? So
Zozo, the devilish spirit that likes to toy with people in the Ouija board.
Started with a guy claiming that he encountered Zozo through his Ouija board, and he's been haunted ever since by it. And it takes the form of a raven, sometimes.
See, I have issues with that.
Yeah, I know.
I have big issues with that.
And sometimes it screws with them, and I don't know. It's... So...
I don't mess with Ouija boards anyway because I don't really like the concept of opening doors or the possibility of opening doors that I may or may not have the knowledge or be equipped to shut said doors. So I just don't even go there. I mean, if other people feel comfortable with toying with such things, they're more than welcome to do so, but that's not something I know.
Okay, but this one really bothers me. Now, I don't know if a lot of people watch YouTube. I mean, I don't, but there's a really good person that investigates sort of like paranormal type stuff called Paranormal Scholar, and she did an episode on Zozo, and I've heard of it. It's been all over the internet for a while. And people have sworn that they've contacted Zozo through their Ouija boards and all this other stuff. It's another like entity that people swear have been in contact with. And there's videos, it's like Zozo's watching me or following me or whatever. Here's proof or whatever. Well, this guy, I honestly think he made it all up. And it progressed into, again, like sightings of Slender Man. It progressed into, this was before creepypastas were creepypastas. This guy said he had contact publish it on the internet because there's a distinct timeline of people talking about Zozo or researching Zozo. And it all starts with this one guy. And the thing is that he used the same logo on, he described it Zozo scratched or whatever, as Jimmy Page did for Led Zeppelin.
Yep.
And that irritates me. It's like, if you're going to make up something, don't make it so blatantly obvious that you ripped it all off.
He didn't make it up if he stole it from somebody else.
No, but I mean, the thing is like, supposedly, I mean, this guy is a big fan of Jimmy Page. And this was supposed to be sort of his, this was supposed to be his tribute in a way by doing that. And it just really irritates me that he ripped off a logo.
Yeah.
From somebody else and use it for his own personal gain, because basically without him we would never have the Ouija board movies. He was looking for a movie deal.
Right. I mean, and has a website and other things like that.
Yeah, he was also...
Doesn't he have other merchandise and stuff?
Yeah, he was also he was featured as like a co-author
Didn't
of
he
a
write a
book
and stuff too?
Yeah. And
so he's monopolized off of this.
To me, the Zozo phenomenon was... He took it from... It has the original concept, and nobody's going to be, well, what about the dictionary Laferno? It does have a basis, but it was also the entry in that dictionary, what she translates in is, this girl acted like she was possessed by demons by the name Zozo, but they found out that she was acting the entire time. This is not a legitimate, even by the standards of when it was entered into this dictionary, this French dictionary, that's supposed to be all about paranormal stuff, disproved it in the same dictionary.
Wow.
So...
That's pretty sad.
Yeah.
Okay. That's more aggravating than anything.
And then we get into the black-eyed children.
Black-eyed children. This creeps me out more than anything, okay? I've been an avid lover of all things horror ever since I was a child myself. And I've always been creeped out and will always forever be creeped out by the concept of little kids in horror.
You know what they say? There is nothing more lovely than the laughter and giggle of small children in a house when you're home by yourself, when you realize you don't have children.
Shut your face. I do not watch Children of the Corn. Do not. The Bunny Man can tell you that will not be a movie we will review. Them little buggers creep me the crap out. I don't care how bad the movie is, review-wise, it creeps me out. Them little buggers creep me the crap out. I cannot stand it. So the concept that there are little creepy kids out there that knock on your door late at night and ask to come in and use your loo, or say there's an emergency and they need your help and want to be all crying and everything, and they have eyes as dark as my soul, and no. You want to bet that this Southern girl would crap her pants if she saw something like that? Yeah, I'd be having to change. Yeah.
No, I think this is...
There's no way on this green earth I would let any little creepy bugger in my house. I don't care how many crocodile tears they're crying late at night if their eyes were black.
They don't cry. The thing is...
Ain't gonna happen.
One of the characteristics of black-eyed children is that they're far removed from emotions.
I don't care what they are. I ain't letting no little creepy buggers in my house.
And I get that, but they say that the people who have talked to them have said that it's almost very robotic, like the way that they talk. is unnatural they've explained it as unnatural. They're very cordial, like old movie cordial. And so it's just one of those weird, like, things. Now, I've heard different theories. With the black-eyed children are actually alien mishmashes. But I think what's interesting is that they're a combination of different folklore. One of them being one of the biggest, I think, more ancient vampire mythos is that a vampire cannot enter your dwelling unless invited in. So it's very, to me, it's very interesting that these black-eyed children are asking, but they cannot cross that threshold, either be in the car or into a house without being invited in. And everybody says that, everything their hair stands up on end, their body tells them don't let them in. There's there's fear, and then in one case, one woman like blacked out or whatever.
Really?
Yeah, but here's the thing about black-eyed children is that all these reports are always when they're home by themselves. It's always dusk or dark, and they always disappear almost right after the encounter. Or they can't, or there's lost time encounters.
So there's no witnesses.
Yeah.
There's no photographic evidence.
Mm-mm.
There's no physical proof.
Mm-mm. Again, I think this is a really great concept of something that, and again, they've found that, sort of started here, in the earlier days of the internet. Mm-hmm. Where, I don't remember if you remember this or not, but, when you had, the only way you communicate with other people, you didn't have forums because we weren't advanced enough yet, but we had email, so you would chain forward these emails back and forth, and that's when that started. These black-eyed children on one of these like paranormal websites, or
it's when the electronic chain mail.
Yeah.
People still do it. It drives me insane. I will not continue this.
No, but
quit sending.
No, but you signed up. You signed up for it. And that's the only way. There was no forums. That's what I was trying to get at. So, this is before pro boards.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And so, I think this is one of the longest internet mythologies that we have. Mm-hmm. And I think it's one of the more one of the creepier ones. But I think it's a great mashup.
Well, I think the reason why it's so creepy is it's one that seems like it could be real.
Yeah.
You're taking an everyday thing, a child, and you're just tweaking it a little bit to make it very creepy.
There's two different things that are removed from this that make it extremely creepy. One of them is being the lack of anything going on in their eyes.
Pigmentation, yeah.
Okay, and I don't know. I mean, you can look pictures or people who photoshopped black-eyed children, mm-hmm. and it's it's creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, the other one is the delivery. They removed the emotional part of a child and made it into an adult. So here's the small little person asking very cordially, out of character, to come inside to use the bathroom or come inside to use your telephone. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that creeps me out, is the removal of a child.
So you're taking away the concept of being able to read someone, because that's really, our eyes show a lot of emotion. Mm-hmm. And you're taking away the concept of emotion by not showing emotion.
I mean, like vocal
Right.
inflections and stuff like that. It's and you're not making them children. They're not running up to your door laughing, and they come out of nowhere. They disappear. They knock on your door. They ask very robotically about something that every kid has now.
Right. So they act like those kids in that one horror movie, The Shining.
Yeah.
Is that it?
There's one kid in The Shining.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it's also a mix of vampires, of the vampire mythos.
Well, the concept that they have to be invited in. That's the only thing.
But the thing is.
Well, and then they come out at around dark time too.
Yeah.
So I guess that's another thing. They're not seen during the day.
And then, the other aspect is that they disappear, like I said. But what was it? It was on the tip of my tongue. Oh, and there's been no, there's been no, oh yeah, I let these kids in to my house, and this is what happened. Mm-hmm. There's been no records of that happening. So, and then the 2 or 3, I met the black-eyed children thing had lost time. They fainted or something. So that's interesting. So, but it also brings in like the alien mythos, because there's theories that it's the Greys produced them, because one lady was abducted by the Greys, and then she saw these black-eyed children in the spaceship. So therefore, now you're getting into the alien stuff. So I mean, it's all interesting. So, so do you? I guess the question is do you think it's an internet myth, or do you think that they could possibly exist? These black-eyed children.
Do I think there are real black-eyed children?
Yeah, why not?
No.
No.
I think the brain is a very powerful thing.
What would happen if you saw a black-eyed child?
What would happen?
Well, Deluna would have it happen.
I think my door would shut really, really fast. And it would get locked really, really fast. And I would get an axe in my hand, or a very big instrument in my hand. And I don't think black-eyed children have very good chance in hell at my house with my big dog, and the fact that we're Viking-esque people, and we have a lot of tools and
I think what's
swords and sharp
now out of
implements.
all of these, the black-eyed children, I think, has really taken off in the past few years. You can type in black-eyed children.
They are creepy little buggers. The
No.
concept is just weird.
No, but I'm saying the sightings of black-eyed children have increased in the past 3 years. You can type anything on YouTube, and you're going to get, I saw black-eyed children. This is my experience with the black-eyed children. Now, they could all be false. They could all be attention seekers. I don't know. But, again, is it goes back to, the Slender Man. Did we create something as a species because we heard about it? It's very weird. Like, I was watching this video.
I think black-eyed children would be much, much easier to falsely
Claim?
No. Replicate.
Yeah.
We have black contacts, and our daughter loves these very strange or I don't know, cosplay type outfits. So, like, she had red contacts. She wants black contacts. For my own mental stability, she does not have them. And until she becomes an adult and can legally purchase them herself, she will not get them because I can't mentally handle seeing her wearing them due to this phenomena. I like to not have a stroke. I want to keep my blood vessels intact.
There is that question of, do you think some of these sightings are, again, the people trolling in real life?
Hey, think about the clown issue we had not long ago.
Okay, yeah.
It is not past people to do things like this. I don't put it past people. And with black contacts, it could happen.
Yeah.
And there are teenagers and young adults that are small enough to be able to pass as young children.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't even have to be young children. I mean, it just says the range is between, young to teen, let's say.
But there are teenagers.
7 to teenage.
There are teenagers and young adults that are smaller in stature to where they could pass as a small child.
Your ex-husband is one of them.
They could put black contacts in and knock at somebody's door and do this. And so some of the claims online could be legitimate claims.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that get sick thrills out of scaring the bejesus out of people.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that do this. Okay.
And our last one, the rake.
The rake.
I hate the name of this thing.
I don't really understand the name, but...
No, that's the thing that bothers me. One thing. If they would explain why they call him the rake, I imagine, literally, a rake. Like what you do with leaves. So, this is a humanoid creature.
It's basically like Slenderman, but less...
Slendery Manny.
Less sophisticated?
Yeah. It's a primal Slender Man.
Yeah.
With eyes and a mouth. It has distinct humanness characteristics. And, in enlarged eyes. And it sort of reminds me of the New Jersey Devil in a way.
So in the early 2006, the collaboration had accumulated nearly 24 documents dating between the 12th century and present day, spanning 4 continents. In almost all cases, the stories were identical.
It's also Fandom Wiki.
Huh?
This is the actual story. Basically, what the rake is that this guy encountered this thing, his wife disappears, it's been sort of hunting him the rest of the time. And it's just the elongated humanoid creature that comes out. It's a mixture between the New Jersey Devil and the Chupacabra and a hairless mole. So
it looks like a person. How can it be a Chupacabra?
No, I'm saying by what it betrays.
It's
yeah.
Movements?
Well, yeah, I could say movements or motivations or, This one I think is one of the least hacked out creepypastas, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. I'm not a big fan of this one. It's very...
Yeah, I'm just...
It's not that interesting.
No.
The name is very annoying.
Yeah, I'm not really...
The biggest interest out of this entire thing is the image.
Well, and the fact that most of the stories or most of the sightings are so very similar.
Yeah.
That's not very common for stories that people have or their recollection of what they saw to be so on point.
Actually, it's supposed to be. If you have different people saying that, the same similar thing, then it's more likely to be real than it is if you have several different people saying exactly different things. That's why they do cross-examinations the way that they do.
Six-foot-tall, humanoid, pale grayish skin, 2 large eyes in the front of the head, no nose, mouth that is slightly visible, then opens on a hinge. Hundreds of dull but not blunt teeth. Eats meat.
I don't understand that.
Genitals don't matter because no interviews really talk about that. Seen in suburban areas, minding his own business. Attacks when approached, but mostly just glares at people. Looks human enough to be able to disguise with fedora and trench coat or similar.
Hey, Pandora time.
Okie dokie. Yeah, there's quite a few different sketches of him, but basically it just kind of looks like an emaciated old man.
Okay, but here's some problems I have with it. The not sharp but dull teeth thing that likes to eat meat. Could you imagine being toothed by an old man?
Not sharp, but dull. Strange choice.
I mean, that would be so hard to eat meat. I mean, you have to have sharp teeth to dig it. That's why we have canines.
Yeah.
So this one, everything about it sort of contradicts it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
This one infuriates me, actually.
If anything, if I were to come into contact with this creature, it's one of those, like, it's a train wreck type situations. Yeah. You can't not look. Kind of like a donkey show type thing. Like, it's so awful. I don't want to look, but I can't not watch.
I think if I saw this thing in real life, I would just be like...
Especially if he was wearing a trench coat and a fedora. I'm going to be like, dude.
I would have to ask him if he's part of our atheism.
What are you doing? What is going on with you?
Yeah. But I wanted to bring up, like, just really bad, like, they tried, but they just did not do well. And I think it's because it seems like it was based off of already established urban legends that did far better. Like I said, the New Jersey Devil and stuff like that.
Let's just take this. We'll put it in a pot. We'll stir it up. And there you go. Like when you want to test spaghetti to see if it's done and you just throw it at the wall and it sticks. Yeah, it's done. But there are far better ways to test to see if spaghetti's done. Without getting spaghetti stuck on the wall.
Now you're eating wall spaghetti. Nobody wants to eat wall spaghetti. I don't know. It's just...
So, I do find creepypastas to be very intriguing. I do find it to be a great creative outlet. Do I think they're real? No. I don't.
No. I'm not... Okay, I'm more of like neutral. I'm not going to say they're not, but I'm not going to say they are. I just hope I don't come in contact with them. And if I have running across a fairy mound, I'm putting the road around it. Just putting it out that way.
Not trying to tempt fate on that one. But,
No, there are two...
But I haven't seen any creepypastas that involve fairies, so... But fairies go into a different category.
Okay, but I think the issue with that, too, is that just... You have to dig deep into history to dig that... in mythology. To dig that one out.
Okay. Mythology and creepypastas aren't the same thing.
No, they exactly are the same thing. You know the difference between mythology and creepypasta is?
What?
At least 500 years.
Okay.
That's all. You don't think that maybe possibly fairies were at some point in somebody else's creepypastas over 1,000 years ago?
Okay. But fairies are also in... my brain is not working. Some biblical resources too.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, let's say 600 years from now, Slender Man is not going to show up in the Bible.
in a biblical source?
Yeah. I'm just pointing something out.
Maybe he does, but I'm still not going to believe that
No.
is a pertinent thing.
No, but I think what's interesting, there's two of them that I can see if it actually could exist.
But I will still be respectful of fairies and their position. I'm not going to stress.
I mean, the one that creeps me out of all of them is the Black Eyed Children one. That's just one of them that's like that possibly could exist.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't know what's out there in the world half the time, so it's quite possible that the Black Eyed Children exist. Slender Man, on the other hand, I'm not a big proponent of him existing.
I do find it really interesting, though, that you could take a concept such as Slenderman or the Rake or any of these for that matter. You could make this story come to life in a way that you put it out there on the interweb. Someone on the other side of the world from where you are can read this story to the point to where it could come to life for them, that they actually see it.
Yes. And I think...
They physically see this
And I
entity.
think that is one of the more interesting things, especially with like the Slender Man and the Black Eyed Children concept, is that people are reporting sightings of these creatures all across the world. I think that's amazing. Just because I'm sitting there going, I don't know if as a human conscience, if we all sort of think the same thing, it could poof come into existence somehow. You know, I don't know. I mean,
that is a very fascinating concept. It's intriguing.
But I mean, it's very interesting that, like I said, Bigfoot and stuff like that. It just amazes me, and that's why I wanted to bring.
Well, Bigfoot had to have been a creepypasta-esque concept at some point.
And you just made my argument for me about Slender Man being in the Bible in about 1,000 years.
Bigfoot's not in the Bible?
Yet. And so saith Bigfooteth.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You want to be pinched at some point, don't you? I see a pinch in your near future. A big giant pinch on the flabby, fatty part of your arm. It's going to feel so good. Not for you. Anyway.
That is our...
We hope you guys enjoyed this
Terror Talk.
Terror Talk. It's been so long since we've had one that I can't remember what we're doing. But anyway, this was our Terror Talk about creepypastas and other
internet
urban legends. And
I would like. This is
about
one
it.
subject that I would really like to hear other people's opinions on, because that's what made these things popular. Is other people,
Yep.
And we do have a Patreon. We do have a Discord, but I haven't posted anything to it. You can catch us on Twitter and Instagram. If you're interested, just contact us through that. We do have an email if you're interested in that, and all those will be in the box below. We do have a Facebook. We just haven't been keeping up to date, but we do check it. Just nobody posts to it.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of anything.
Our stuff is pretty lonely. If you have any interesting creepypastas you would like to possibly let us read online, contact us, and we'll see about doing that. If you're the rake, you suck.
It's not one of our favorites.
No.
That's not that it's horrible. I mean, just because we don't find it extremely fascinating.
I don't find it scary. I cannot imagine a creature coming at me with not sharp but dull teeth that likes meat.
Yeah.
It'd just be like being gummed by an old man. He might as well be a turtleneck. It'd be like being strangled by a weak man all day. All right. Anything else you want to put in?
No, I think that's about it.
So, our next terror news will be, if we want to talk about things, dragging things out of the dead, never again.
Well, we'll scare you guys later.
Bye.